Yes, I'm actually back. Welcome back to the channel, and yeah, I get it. It's been a minute. Let me cut right to the chase. It's because I lost the motor. Why did I lose the motor? How did I lose the motor? We don't know. We haven't torn down the engine yet, but on to bigger and brighter things. I am now rocking a fully built engine. So let's talk about the circumstances under which it expired. So I bought this car in 2017. It's a 2016 model. I've put 60,000 kilometers on the car. And for those whole 5 years before it expired, it was tracked, basically, from when I had it. And when I say tracked, I don't mean the odd track day. If you guys have been watching my videos, this car actually sees time attack competition. And it does anywhere from 12 to 15 events per year. So a lot of track time. And I'm actually starting to see this a fair bit now with cars around a similar age. The engines just seem to let go after a while due to various reasons. And I will find out what happened to mine when the teardown happens, but all we know is it had misfires and lost compression, basically, in multiple cylinders. It was on the racetrack that it happened. So first lap, I did the warm-up, and then bang on it, and within 10 or 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds, EPC light, all the dash lights went off, and the car kind of spluttered. Engine's still running, but went into like limp mode onto the side of the road. And that was that. I managed to limp it back to the pits, but it ended up going back on a tow truck. We pulled the plugs out to have a look. Three of the straps had broke, which is pretty common for these cars, but we don't believe that was the cause. More an effect of something else, like, you know, we increased cylinder temps because of something else, which then caused the straps to break. So we don't think that's the trigger. But yes, I probably still should have changed plugs a little bit more frequently anyway, and that's something I'm going to be really careful of with this new engine. So let's talk about the new engine a little bit. So why did it take 12 months? Because, well, parts. Before I get to that, why a new engine over just putting in a replacement CJX motor? So the obvious thing is, well, you don't know where it's come from, really. You don't know how it's being treated, and it might get me, another 12 months or something, and then the same thing happens again. And look, labor's really expensive, taking engines in and out, so I'm normally of the opinion of sort of do it once, do it right. So that was the approach, just to get it done right the first time. So a full engine build, bottom end and top end. So forged rods, pistons, head studs. The head's been ported on the exhaust, and the full valve train has been replaced as well. Turbocharger, so we've got an EQT 660 turbo on there, putting out some pretty stout numbers actually. So at the moment the car's putting out almost 400 kilowatts at the wheels, so 395 kilowatts in fourth gear on a hub dyno. So on a roller, that'd be maybe about the 360-ish mark, give or take. So, you know, well and truly sort of in the kind of over 500 horsepower, or whatever that equates to in freedom units. But it's quick. It's really quick. And we're running boost by gear as well, thanks to Galano. So the whole engine build and tuning is all done by Chris at Galano. He's done a fantastic job. He chose all the specs for the hardware, for the build. It's running full flex as well, so E85. I mean, that's the only way you're going to get those kind of numbers anyway, reliably. Let's go have a look at the engine bay. So maybe let's talk about what's different. So it's a whole new core. So none of my original engine is here really. All the components that hang off the engine were moved across from mine, but this was a fresh core and head, used, obviously, not brand new, used for the donor build. So those that have been watching my videos for a while may be laughing a little bit on the inside, or calling me a hypocrite, because yes, I have a racing line intake replacing the stock setup that I have. And the reason for that is that we actually saw it become a limitation on the dyno. So when we were, hitting some pretty big numbers, they started to see the wastegate duty cycle go up pretty high. So it obviously points to some kind of restriction in the system. And that ended up being the intake. So they popped a racing line intake on there with this, I don't know what pipe that is, or if it comes with the racing line, I don't know. That's what they recommended, and it fixed the problem. So, I guess I stand by my sentiment that the intake, that the modded OEM intake, I think is still a really good way to go for, a standard turbo car. What else do we have here? So fueling system is all done by Galano. You can see we've got some EQT parts here as well. Is that the put sensor? I always get them confused, or is it the map sensor? It's one of those two. Fueling's all done, injectors, fuel rail have all been upgraded. This is obviously an MPI car, being in Australia where we got MPI. So that's all been upgraded. High pressure fuel pump, of course, has been upgraded. Low pressure has as well. Inlet manifold, still standard. Boost pipes are all still stock, apart from, you can see that one there that is being replaced. But other than that, boost pipes are still standard. Things you can't see, so down the bottom there, we've actually got a IR bed baffled sump, more for insurance purposes, I guess. We don't want sort of any surging on track. Not that it's a massive problem on this platform. Baffled sump takes care of all of that for us, as well as increasing the oil capacity, help us with cooling. What else? So we also installed a differential as well. So we fitted a M-Factory differential to work with the VAQ that this car has. I thought, while everything's apart, may as well throw one in anyway. The VAQ, honestly, even at the power I was running before, starts to just not work that well. Works fantastic when the car's stock, but when you start pushing more power, it just doesn't react quickly enough. So the differential certainly helps with that, and I guess takes the pressure off the VAQ system, and it kind of maybe doesn't even do a lot anymore. All right, so we have a new engine. What's next? So pretty much back to motorsport. So I've had the car out twice now, in the last couple of months. I only got it back in November, so timeline-wise, engine blew in like April 2022. I got it back in about November-ish, I think. Then it was just motor running time, so you can't do anything. It's just, I had to put, what was it? 1,000 kilometers on it or something like that. Maybe it was more. No, 2,000. 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers I had to put on it. So that was just driving as much as I could. For that run-in period, the car that went back to the workshop, got a leak down test, checked that everything's right. The car's been back for a few tune revisions as well. Did my first track day about a month ago or so. That went okay. Okay as in like, what I found is that the whole sort of mental game in terms of, you know, you had a car that broke, now you're back. In the back of your head, it's really hard to get rid of those thoughts that, shit, am I gonna break this car again? I guess getting the trust back in the car was really where it was at for the first time out. But really, it was just a shakedown anyway. Just kind of taking it easy as first, building. You know, wasn't really chasing any serious times, but you know, I gave it a fair crack towards the end. It was about 2 seconds off my previous best times, which I thought was okay, considering the layoff and the fact that it was a shakedown. I had it back out just a couple of nights ago and beat my PB, actually, so by about 7/10. And that wasn't really driving very well at all. So really happy with that. Really happy that the car was able to sort of get back really quickly to where it was at. Yes, I'm putting out a whole lot more power now, but that also means it's a very different car to drive. It really is. Like, there's so much torque steer there, even with the boost by gear. When you get on it in like third or fourth, too much throttle, the car just sidesteps. Even the diff can't handle it all that well. So really different car to drive. We're logging each session. We've got a whole bunch of data to go through to see where we can optimize the tune, like the traction strategies, basically, to give us as much traction as possible. And that's just an ongoing process. But really happy that performance-wise, the car's back where it was. One thing to note, I don't have any oil coolers on there. I did replace the auxiliary coolers. So standard radiator, I've replaced the 2 auxiliary radiators with upgraded items from Mishimoto. They're on sale. No oil cooler, standard radiator, and it still manages the temps okay. On a hot day, it starts to struggle a little bit. I only get probably 2 laps out of it, but in cooler weather, I did like 5 laps the other night. Took 1 cooler lap in between, and it didn't get over 115 degrees C. So yeah, the 85 really working wonders there, plus the cooling strategies within the tune are really aggressive for that purpose. And other things like the extra fuel capacity in the sump, etc. So all those little things working really well. So no need for an oil cooler or anything like that yet, but we'll see how that goes. So what's next? Obviously, when the car was out, I collected a whole bunch of parts, as you do, and a lot of extra work now is going to need to go into the chassis and suspension. So I've been thinking about how we sort of evolve in that area. I think this car's it's got a fair bit of chassis development in it already, and I think that's one of the reasons why the car's always been so quick. But in terms of what's next, here I think is going to be my little cheat code. So we are going to put the Verkline arms back in, and they're going to be paired with this. So I'm going to remove the Club Sport S uprights in favour of these TTRS uprights. And that's why I need the Verkline arms. They would work with the TTS arms, but obviously I want to get as much adjustment as possible. So we're going to pair TTRS uprights with the Verkline arms. Now, why TT uprights? If you're that familiar with MQB uprights, you'll be noticing how different these are. They're a lot larger, and a lot of that is down here. The distance here between the spline and where it actually connects to the control arm is about 3 to 4 centimeters longer. And that's basically going to give you vastly improved roll center, like vastly. Like the kits that you get give you maybe, I think, 1 centimeter, 1.5 centimeters, if you're lucky, roll center. I reckon these give you 3 to 4 centimeters of roll center. So they're going on with the Verkline arms. That will be sort of the start of the evolution of the front end. May also put some stiffer springs in as well. But eventually I think I'll need a revalve on all the shocks and to move to stiffer spring rates, 100%. The rear of the car. So the rear, nothing major needs to change there. I guess I've got some locking bushes for the subframe for the rear and some adjustable toe and camber arms that are going to go in. I did go for the poly versions, not spherical. I do have spherical bushes, as I've mentioned on an earlier video, in the lower control arm, the spring platform. Basically, that lower arm I had replaced with Verkline spherical bushes. The trailing arm bush has a stiffer Super Pro bush in it, really important. And by now upgrading the toe and camber arms, that basically means every bush will be upgraded either with spherical or like a stiffer poly unit. And the front end, of course, will be all spherical, thanks to the Verkline parts. So I guess that's what's going to be happening with the car. That's, I guess, in terms of like future content, I'll definitely be documenting those upgrades. I really want to do some like track videos as well, but it's actually really hard, I found, to go out to a racetrack, focus on what I'm doing, which is competition, really. Focus on that and do content, I found really tough on my own. If I had like a separate cameraman or something, that would be a lot easier, but on my own, really tough. There just isn't enough time in the day. So maybe at like a practice event that I go to, which is sort of a bit less demanding mentally, I'll try and shoot some video. But yeah, other than that, a lot of it's going to be on the chassis work, I think, and whatever else I think is interesting. Yeah, so I guess that's a recap of the last 12 months in terms of what's been happening with me and the car. But it is back after the hiatus. It's back, and I'm going to hopefully be back to making more content.